What are you charged with?
That's a really good question. I'm charged with being the head of an organized criminal group, which is in charge of recruiting girls to make TikTok videos to steal the money from the TikTok views.
Recruiting girls to make TikTok videos and stealing the money. So it's really a financial crime?
It looks that way. And it's very interesting because the girls who they've identified to add to the file are saying that we're not victims of anything and this isn't true. But the state believes it's true. And the state thinks that I, as a 35-year-old man, woke up. I was already extremely financially successful. I was already a father. I was already very well known. I had no financial motivation. I have no criminal record. It's not my personality profile, but I woke up at the age of 35 and decided to make girls do TikTok to enrich myself with the pennies that I would earn from TikTok views.
So in the United States, I think the belief is that you were charged with human trafficking.
Yeah, that's human trafficking because what you do is you force a girl to work against her will for financial gain. That's human trafficking. And their justification for this is that girls do TikTok. Some girls I know who they found who say they're not victims have TikTok accounts.
How do you force someone to do TikTok videos?
I guess the prosecutor's gonna have to explain that, isn't he? It's a very interesting scenario I'm in, and I'm inside of Romania, so I have to show a degree of respect to the Romanian judicial system. And I have to show a degree of respect to the situation I'm in. But the overall charge is that there's an organized criminal group. There's a group of us. I'm the head of it. My brother is below me. And we use the lover boy method to convince women to do TikTok videos to make money so that we can steal the TikTok money.
So there's no, just to be clear, you are not accused of pandering, of pimping, of forcing women to have sex with anybody.
No, not forcing them to have sex, not restraining their movement, not stopping them from living a full life. But the fact that we are somehow convincing them to have TikTok. Very interesting. I don't think...
But there's no actual... I'm asking you this because I do think it's a widespread belief that you were accused of pimping.
Yeah, no, that's nothing to do with any of this case. Absolutely nothing. And it's kind of scary because the crime in itself of human trafficking is a unique one because they can ignore the statement of the victim. So the girls have come forward and said, this is insane. You've just picked us because we're near Andrew and we're his friends. But the whole idea of the crime is they can say that she's brainwashed, right? She's under duress. So you can ignore her statement. State says she's a victim, regardless of the fact that she says she's not a victim. So it's very interesting because the difference between sex and rape is consent, right?
Right.
But they remove all of that. They're like, nope, you're a victim. No matter what you say, we're deciding you're a victim. And they've chosen them. And of course, these girls do nothing pornographic. They've never had sex with anyone, nothing to do with that. So they've picked TikTok.
Okay, so I'm going to come across extremely ignorant, but it was my belief that human trafficking involved kidnapping people and forcing them into some kind of slave labor. Now, I do know that people don't necessarily have to be locked up in chains for it to be considered human trafficking. For instance, I know sometimes pimps, what they'll do is they'll get their women hooked on drugs to kind of ensure that they come back because they're going to come back to get that fix. So even though they're not locking them up or using violence, they're using the drugs to ensure that they come back. And that is a form of human trafficking. And so what it sounds like here is they were using the lover boy method, which is very different from using drugs, physical force, violence, or threats to kind of keep someone from leaving. And here's what I'll say about that. If the Tates were being romantic with any of the girls that they were working with, I think that's just a terrible idea. It's never a good idea to mix business with pleasure. Matter of fact, they got laws against romance in the workplace, especially if you hold a higher position above the person. So on those grounds alone, what they were doing was completely unethical. However, it's not illegal. People will get fired or sued for having inappropriate work romances, but they don't go to jail for it. The thing about emotional manipulation is extremely hard to prove. It's kind of like the Tinder swindler. And even in that situation, it took a long time to try to build a case against that guy. But when you think about it, the Tinder swindler is way worse because he was just taking money from the women. With the Tates, yeah, they were making money off the women, but these women were making pretty good money themselves. So far, based on all the evidence I've seen, what this sounds like to me is Andrew is in this mess for having very bad business practices. But to me, this is just enough for a civil case, not for a criminal case.
So it's scary. Imagine you're a full-grown man anywhere in the world today. They can find two girls who have TikTok on their phone, which is every single female on the planet, and they can accuse you of forcing them to take the TikTok money. And even if the girls say they didn't do that, this isn't true, then you're still a human trafficker.
But force, what does that consist of? Forcing someone to do something. Are they accusing you of using violence or?
No, they're accusing me, and this is the thing, they're accusing me of using the lover boy method, coercing them by being nice.
And by the way, these charges presumably are public, so
They're public, and this is extremely serious. But if you actually analyze the overall case against me, they're saying that Andrew and his brother, by being nice men, convinced girls to have TikTok accounts and then take the money. And it's very interesting because inside of the entire case file, there's not a single financial transaction to us for money.
what are the penalties?
They're extremely severe, 5 to 10 years in jail. And I've already served, coming up now, 7 months in a form of jail.
So here's the thing I'm confused about. So he keeps talking about TikTok videos. When I heard about these charges, I just automatically assumed that they were convicting him based on the things that happened when he was running his webcam business. Now, based on the stuff that I heard that was going on with the webcam business, it was extremely shady. And yeah, there might be enough to try to, maybe convict him off of that. But if we're talking about just TikTok videos, that was something recent versus the webcam stuff, which is years ago, to me, that doesn't make too much sense. Why would Andrew Tate decide to make money being a human trafficker when he makes way more money being a media influencer? Now, a lot of the stuff from his webcam days does sound pretty iffy, but I want to kind of dive into that because I think there's some misconceptions about the webcam business. I think what a lot of people don't understand is webcam studios are a legit business. These women willingly sign contracts with the webcam studios and they agree to give up a portion of their profits so they can work with the webcam studio. Why would they do this? Oftentimes women do this because it's too hard to kind of really get started on their own. The webcam studio already has the infrastructure set up. And a big part of it is the promotions, which promoting yourself can be very hard to do. So the webcam studio handles all of that. So that's why they take a profit. So I hear a lot of people say, oh, Andrew Tate is scamming these women. No, that's how the webcam business works. The reason he's taking a portion of the profits is because him and his team are taking care of all the back end stuff. Hell, I even heard that he was saying that they even do all the chatting. So the women don't even have to do the chatting. They just have to show up on camera and Andrew and his team takes care of everything else. Now, I did hear that Andrew takes 40%, which is crazy because I think the normal rate is 20%. So to get 40% is wild. But if these women read the contract, knew that going in and signed it, there's not too much you can say about that. So while I believe that the webcam business is completely immoral, it is a legal business and it's very popular in Romania. Now, another thing that Andrew Tate was accused of was rape back in March of 2022. Now, I don't think they really touch on that in this podcast, but here's what I'll say about that. Now, if these accusations were coming from his webcam days back in 2015, 2016, I maybe would have believed it. But 2022, Andrew Tate, I just don't see it. Andrew Tate has been surrounded by nothing but beautiful women for the past 3 years. He's the most Googled man on the planet. He's at the peak of his success. And now all of a sudden he wants to force himself on a woman. It just doesn't make sense to me. And from the story I heard, the woman who was accusing him was kicked out of Andrew's house for being too drunk. Now, if you're the type of guy who wants to force himself on a woman, typically it's the drunk women you want to keep in the house, not kick out, so that way you can take advantage of them later. Look, I know we got to wait until all the evidence comes out before we can make some real judgments, but based off the evidence I have seen, I don't think there's enough to convict Andrew on this.
What is human trafficking?
Yeah, so the overall, my understanding of it, they're saying that human trafficking is when you convince a woman to do something she doesn't want to do for financial gain. And there's different methods you can do that. You can do that through force, and you can also do that through emotional coercion.
I think most people, just speaking from the American perspective, most people believe that human trafficking is effectively slavery, selling human beings.
That's what I believe as well. Absolutely. And this is the thing that's so interesting. When you finally end up the enemy of the matrix and they use the legal system as a weapon to punish you for having an opinion, you realize how subjective the law is, right? Because it can be a weapon. When you have something subjective, you can just pick and choose. So if they sit and say, human trafficking is a woman doing something for financial gain against her will via emotional coercion. Well, he knows these two girls, they have TikTok accounts.
Emotional coercion?
Convincing her. That's what I'm accused of, because they have no proof of me doing anything wrong. So they said, he's convinced these girls to do TikTok for money. The girls have said themselves, this is not true. And the state is denying their statement, saying, no, you're brainwashed. It is true. And I went to jail.
So how is the state, so the state is trying to coerce the women So how is the state not committing human trafficking by the same definition?
Well, absolutely. It's very interesting. It's very interesting that you can sit someone down and tell them they're a victim when they say they're not a victim.
You're a victim of being coerced, and we're going to try to coerce you into conceding you were coerced.
Exactly. It's a very interesting scenario. And
Okay.
yeah, and it's a very interesting scenario. And it's up until this point, no judge has looked at the evidence of the case. So up until this point, I've been to court a bunch of times. But the only reason I was in court was to discuss my preventative detention. So under Romanian law, if you being free can impede the investigation, you should stay in jail. So the judge agreed that, yeah, maybe if he's free, he can damage this investigation because they're trying very hard to get something on this guy. So I've done a bunch of jail time. And now it just begins. The judge is going to look at the case. And like I said, God willing, I still have enough faith in the Romanian judicial system that she's going to look at this and go, this is not a crime.
Here's what I'm going to say on that. I think there's a very big difference between trying to convince someone to take a job versus coercion. And I know the word manipulation gets thrown around a lot during this case. But I don't think manipulation is enough to convict someone on human trafficking. And I'm going to tell you why. So when I was around 18, these two guys approached me and they said, hey, you look like you're a hard worker and you got your head on your shoulders. How would you like an opportunity to make a whole bunch of money? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm 18 years old. I just joined the workforce. Absolutely. Yeah, let's get this bread. So when I meet with these guys, the whole time, they're not even talking about the job itself. They're talking about all the money I can make, about certain employees who are driving these fancy cars. They're showing me mansions of different people or how they came up. They're showing me the different exotic locations where they have their business meetings and conferences. It's like, oh, you're going to be traveling around the world and you're going to be doing this. You're going to be doing that. You're just going to be making so much money. It's going to be crazy, you know, and they're just like, they're trying to sell me on the job, which I thought was weird out the gate because I'm like, why would anyone try to sell me on the job? Most jobs you go into, you got to prove yourself to get the job. Usually you go, you sit down at an interview and say, hey, look, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this. They're trying to tell me what they are to try to get me to join in on their Ponzi scheme. So long story short, all of the stuff that they were telling me were nowhere near the reality of the situation. And basically my chances of traveling and going to these business meetings and getting the fancy cars and the mansion was just as likely as any other job. So basically what I'm saying is those guys were trying to manipulate me into joining their Ponzi scheme. Now, if we're using the same definition here, we're talking about emotional manipulation to get someone to do a job. That's what they're accusing Andrew of. And that is no different from what those guys did to me. So if that's the case, then there is way more human traffickers out there and we aren't doing nothing to stop them. And if we want to go further into emotional manipulation, women emotionally manipulate men all the time to gain finances. Where's the law against gold diggers? Why isn't there a lover girl method where they take advantage of desperate, lonely men, tell them how they love them and they're genuinely into them for them just so they can take their money and dip? Anna Nicole Smith took that old man's money and was living her best life. So for me, I could care less about the emotional manipulation because if society doesn't care about women emotionally manipulating men to get finances, then why should I care when men emotionally manipulate women to also get resources? Look, y'all gonna hate me for saying that, but fair is fair. And I'm going to dive deeper into this Andrew Tate interview. This video is getting a little long, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop it right here. But you guys go ahead and tell me, do you think Andrew Tate is innocent or do you think he's guilty? Go ahead and put it in the comment section below. Let me know which points you agree with, which points you disagree with. And if you wanna see more videos like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you got anything out of this video, hit that like button. Disagree to disagree. I'm out.